Even more terrible as we grow older to learn that no person, no matter how beloved, can ever truly understand us. Our own selves makes us most unhappy, and that's why we're so anxious to lose them. Everyone is broken in some way, whether they admit it or not. The real danger isn't in the brokenness itself, but rather it's the act of ignoring it. Understanding that fact is one of the most difficult lessons I've had to learn this past 2024. I initially thought that I was simply a magnet to broken people, but in the past year, I've come to realize that the population of disturbed individuals with pretty heavy backstories has simply increased and is exponentially increasing. Why does it feel like that there are a lot of mentally disturbed people nowadays? I don't have the empirical data to back it up, so I'm merely speaking from experience, but I believe it's because everyone keeps telling one another that they should be fine, expecting them to be fine even though there's something clearly wrong. What's even funnier is that the people who say these things, that you should be fine and you should make yourself fine or that you are fine, are just as broken, if not more, than we are. But that's not the real point of the lesson, because here are the real questions. Does wrong necessarily mean bad? Does being broken or flawed mean it warrants some sort of repair or disposal? And trying to answer those questions is how I spent my Sunday evenings in the past few months. Trying to understand the brokenness of others when I can barely understand the completeness of myself. Alright, I admit it, maybe there is something wrong with me. I accept that now, I should stop denying it. And all these empowerment influencers are telling me that that's okay. It's okay to be flawed, it's okay to be different, it's okay to be broken. Alright, what do I do with that information? People with heavy emotional burdens or disturbed mental states or psyches are not even an exception anymore these days. In fact, I even think it's a growing norm. Aside from being common, I even come to the realization or conclusion that it might even be a prerequisite. It may simply just be one of the terms we agree to as people who are under, as I would call it, a lifetime subscription of reality. I've simply reached an age wherein a majority of the people I will meet will most likely have experienced some sort of trauma or unpleasant event in their childhood or in their teenage days. In hindsight, this feels normal and apparent. You're living life, and the longer you live it, the more you experience it. And those experiences aren't all rainbows and butterflies. You, at one point, will have to go through something heavy. That's just what it means to be alive. What if it isn't life? What if it's society? Has society become this place wherein it is built to, at some point in one way or another, crush us into pieces? Around my early years of high school, I've taken up this view that the reason why humanity isn't making leaps in terms of evolution is because of our ability to feel emotions. It was a phase, I've long gone over it to an extent. I used to believe that our ability to feel emotions, the fact that we can be mended, broken, and crushed to pieces, is holding us back. Me 2 years ago heavily reflected and exemplified this belief. I was a robot, logically oriented, efficiency over everything, feelings don't matter, there is no time for emotions. Such thoughts just filled my mind. There is no time to feel things. All that matters is you do what is most important at a given time. I thought of emotions as extra overhead per se, in terms of well-being and practicality. Are you telling me that I have to process my emotions first before my prefrontal cortex does its thing and makes logically sound decisions? You know how much time that wastes? So I tried to rid of all of my emotions and tried to be as aloof, perhaps even cold, and detached as much as I can. And we all know that too much of anything is bad. And I did it too much. In other news, I read a book on neuroscience called The Science of Fate by Hannah Critchlow. It talks about human predisposition and how fated we are. Of course, the most common ones are the physical characteristics such as height, jawline, and all those things. But I won't go into further details, but it simply outlines that a lot of what makes us who we are were already decided before we were even born. So how does this tie into the brokenness argument that I've been going for? One of the key points highlighted in the book is that our brain does a terrible job of assessing reality for what it actually is. It argues that there is no such thing as an objective reality because the human brain isn't even capable of doing so. Any form of information we take in, any experience we go through is warped by our previous experiences and biases, both cognitive and ideological. We may try our best to interpret data or information as it is, but we are pre-wired to associate what happened now to what happened then. This is just one of the many examples illustrated in the book, and it really changed my perspective when it comes to being human and how humans act. So what's the bottom line? The human brain is practically full of bugs, and we can't really do much about that because they are embedded within us. In fact, some of them are there because of evolutionary reasons. I know it sounds simple, but it made me stare at a blank wall for 5 minutes straight when I tried to internalize that. Just to clarify, I'm not here to criticize one of God's greatest works. The human brain, as flawed as it is in certain aspects, is a masterpiece. What I want to highlight isn't just the fact that we are flawed, not just on an individual level, but also on a species evolutionary level. No one is exempt from this. Some people are just better at managing it than others, such as emotional regulation, temper, and a plethora of other human instincts that we are trying to resist. The truth is, yes, it's a struggle, but there's nothing inherently wrong with being broken or bugged or flawed or different, or even feeling the urge to resent ourselves at times. I know this because I've been there myself. I hate myself, and over time, I've started to understand why. And that process of understanding is a journey in itself. It's not easy. You simply can say, oh, I understand that I'm broken and therefore I should do this and that. It also requires a lot of other things such as humility and embracing oneself, as cliche as it sounds. At times, society tells us to even suppress these thoughts, to act as if we're fine and to keep going even when everything inside us is falling apart. But why exactly? Who decided that feeling broken is something to be ashamed of? Society, which is also made up of broken people? See the irony in that? If everybody is inherently broken, bugged, or whatever you may want to call it, then why even bother running away from your brokenness and admitting that you could use a therapy session or two? During my brokenness and reformation journey, during the last few months of 2024, I came across this quote. And God said, love your enemy. And I obeyed him and loved myself. Khalil Gibran. And once I saw this quote, everything just clicked. Maybe I am not my best ally at times. Maybe my brain is uncooperative and is unwilling to help me out with my hopeless situation. So me being broken doesn't matter, right? Because everyone else is broken. And if we try to take in that statement and look at it from the other perspective, does that mean if we acknowledge our brokenness, we also have the liberty to accept it and stay the same? No, I'm not saying that. To be honest, even the term brokenness, at least to me, sounds incredibly vague. I have mentioned in the initial part of the video, saying that something is broken sounds as if it's something to be fixed. And we aren't meant to be fixed because brokenness is part of our nature. It's what it means to be human. It could be a bug, but does that count as a flaw? But more than that, it's a starting point of transformation. It gives you an idea of where you're starting from and which parts of yourself, whether it be physical, mental, psychological, spiritual, could use some work. It's not exactly fixing. You're transforming and working on yourself and constantly improving so that you could be less broken tomorrow. I say less broken because we can't really go back to who we were before we were broken, because we might even be broken as soon as we were born. And again, there's no shame in that. Instead, we evolve into something new, something different. This is one of the pitfalls of the self-improvement trap. Doing self-improvement because you despise yourself. It defeats the point of improvement. In the same manner, my argument regarding brokenness is essentially the same. Self-improvement isn't about erasing your brokenness. Because that's what happened to me back then. Yes, I succeeded in acknowledging my brokenness, but I did not bring that knowledge towards the right direction. I despised myself. I was lacking in this, I could use some work in that, and I did work on it, but out of spite and perhaps even animosity and resentment towards who I was, which just led me to a cycle of self-hatred and the feeling of not being enough. Again, the brokenness never ends. There will always be something flawed about me, and I was constantly magnifying on those flaws. So I realized that instead of fighting my demons, maybe I need to learn how to understand them better. Instead of endlessly battling against myself, maybe the answer is learning to live alongside the parts I rejected. Having these flaws, glitches, weaknesses, and perhaps even a hate for oneself doesn't mean we have to surrender to despair and all our frustration towards our inner wirings of our psyche and our very nature. Because it's our very nature, there's no point. You could be broken, but that doesn't mean you should take up this mindset of fix. No. I myself took a while to let that fact sink in. And it really did change my perspective of society and people in general. Humans aren't made to be perfect. The brain is wired to keep us alive, not to make us happy. Being able to acknowledge your brokenness, and more importantly, not letting that fact discourage you or make you want to disappear, already puts you ahead of so many people. Recognizing your flaws, whether they stem from genetics, predisposition, or of childhood, environmental influences, already puts you ahead of those who go through life pretending that they're fine when they're clearly not. Be humble and accept your flaws, but at the same time, it should be balanced out by the belief that despite these flaws, it doesn't make you any less of a person, because it's what exactly makes you a person, a human person. Be able to proudly say, I am broken, I am disturbed, I might need serious help, and that's fine. I accept myself, so let's get to work. And the get to work part is incredibly important. Beware taking up the mindset of, oh, I have to fix this. I don't like this part of myself. I should get rid of it. No. But instead, ask yourself, what am I working with and where can I go from here? Is it shitty? Yes, it's definitely shitty, but so are a lot of things that I have discussed in the past few lessons. That's a hard pill to swallow, so shove it down your throat if you have to. I'll swerve away from what most people say and tell you up front that you can't just, it is what it is, these types of things. I'm not here to tell you the typical, that's just how life works BS that everyone conveniently throws around. This is going to be a huge pain in the ass. Expect feeling like you've been shattered to pieces and borderline dying. I'm not trying to scare people, but at the same time, I'm also not empowering them. I'm just saying the fact as it is. Be ready to put on those gloves, grab those shattered shards of yourself, and put yourself back together, because life will surely try to tear you to pieces if you haven't been already. So yes, we're all broken. That's what the video title says. But that's not a tragedy. It's just part of being human. It's the human experience, and trying to reject that brokenness would essentially be rejecting your own humanity. Thanks to this lesson, which was a hard pill for me to swallow, I now acknowledge brokenness as something not to fear, but something to understand, and perhaps even something to look forward to discovering. Because through that brokenness, through those flaws, is where we will find the path to true growth. I'm pretty sure that's a subpar outro, but I don't really care anymore. See you in the next one. Thank you for watching.